How did the Disney Channel guy and the everyday bro guy go from that to about to fight Mike Tyson? This is how that happened. This is the rise of Jake Paul. Boxing. Kick this thing on off. Jake Paul versus Deji. You know, they're doing a thing in the co-main event. They're in the undercard for that KSI versus Logan Paul boxing match that went down. You know, the two little brothers getting it on. Seeing who's the better boxer between the little bros. And Deji had his moments early on, but Deji wasn't in a condition to do anything late, as Jake was able to just put it to Deji, and he got the job done with a 5th round stoppage by the ref. First official fight for Jake Paul was versus Gibb. Super Bowl weekend, man. Paul versus Gibb. Gibb had no reason to be in this fight. Gibb, that ain't it, man. If you ain't want to fight, you shouldn't have showed up, because he got to pay, but he ain't show up. Jake Paul did his thing in this fight, man. First round, he gone. He gone. Jake Paul beats Gibb in the first round. Jake Paul is super excited. He's starting to fall in love in boxing, and he's not horrible at it. He's getting better and better, which leads us to the next fight. Jake Paul versus Nate Robinson. This fight was on the Tyson Jones undercard. This is what got people to really notice Jake Paul, as he really gave Nate Robinson that work, to the point where Nate Robinson embarrassed the whole NBA community because of how bad Jake Paul gave him that work and that viral knockout. Jake Paul beat him in round 2 by KO, and Nate still asleep. Nate ain't woke up yet. Hope you're doing better, Nate. I know you got some good sleep that night. Jake Paul now is 2-0 in his boxing career. Next fight, Jake Paul versus Ben Askren. Now we got us a real fighter, MMA fighter, going against Jake. Even though Ben had been retired, Ben was like, man, let me go get this money, man. It's going to be that easy work. Man, that doggone Ben Askren came in out of shape. Wasn't hitting on nothing. Boy, Jake did his thing, and Askren was the opponent that was in front of him. And Jake did his thing, knocked him the slap out. He went to sleep. So Jake just went boom. Y'all see it, man. Shout out to Jake Paul. Round 1 KO of Ben Askren. We're like, okay. All right, Ben been retired. We need MMA. We need to redeem ourselves. So then we got Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. Woodley, former UFC champion. You know, doing his thing. All right, we got us something here. The fight, a lot of hype into it. Watching the fight, you would have wanted Woodley to throw more. Had Woodley thrown more in this fight, he probably could have got a decision. But he just didn't throw as much as he should have. And Jake was leading the fight and was doing everything he needed to get the job done. So Jake beats Tyron Woodley by a split decision. This was an 8-round fight. Like I said, it was close, but Jake got the job done. Now, It was supposed to be Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury. We were hyped to see it. Oh man, this is gonna be good. A real fighter. Nope. Fight got called off last second. T Wood steps up. Man, I'll fight you again, Jake. Let me get that rematch. Leave no doubt. Rematch is set. This time, Jake Paul came to box. It was a slow fight, to say the least. Jake was doing everything to set up T Wood in his fight because he knew what he had coming. And that's what happened. Because that's what led us to this viral KO that Jake Paul gave to T Wood. T Wood, who sponsors the Dude Wipes, they got their money's worth that night as T Wood went down, down, down. Jake Paul KO'd a former UFC champion. He KO'd Tyron Woodley in the 6th round of that fight. Put some respect on Jake Paul's name. Now, he got it set. He's going to do that Tommy Fury rematch again. And no, does not happen. Fury has his issues. Alright, Pop Mine's going to step up. No, that's not going to happen either. Great issues. Nah, dog, that ain't it. So he like, man, forget that. Let me get the GOAT. I want to fight Anderson Silva in a boxing match. Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva is set. It went down for real. Anderson at the time, 47. Jake Paul was 25. The MMA community was like, man, he don't want no smoke with Anderson. Anderson looked good in this boxing fight he had. And Anderson had moments, but Anderson, to me, didn't take this fight serious in the beginning. And that's what cost him at the end. And Jake would have kept going and going. Jake was able to knock Anderson down. That's pretty much, in my opinion, that gave him that fight. Because that fight went to the judges. Granted, it was a unanimous decision. Thought the fight was a little closer than that. But Jake Paul beats Anderson Silva by unanimous decision in their boxing match. What's next for Jake? Tommy Fury again. Let's try for a third time. But this time, it happens. Paul versus Fury. Oh man, let's see what happens when Jake Paul faces a younger, traditional real boxer. They went back and forth. Paul had some success, didn't have a lot of success in this fight. This was without a doubt the best Tommy Fury we've seen box before and since. He was on point in this fight. He showed us what he can do when he's on all cylinders, and he did it, and he was able to get a decision victory over Jake Paul. Jake has his first loss. What does he do to rebound? Fights Nate Diaz in a boxing match. Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz. You know, Nate has all the hype off from the MMA world. Jake has the hype of just being who he is. They go back and forth, and Jake Paul does his thing in this fight as well. Nate has a way of not doing that great in fights, but has a moment that makes you forget that he lost this fight. So he had a moment in the fight. But overall, Jake Paul did his thing. Jake Paul beat Nate Diaz, knocked him down as well. Jake Paul beat Nate Diaz by unanimous decision. Now we got Jake Paul versus Andre August. Who? Andre August. Put some respect on that man name he got in that ring. Jake fighting a real boxer. Wants to make his way up to win him a championship. Big stage, August. He wasn't ready for it, man. As Jake was able to do his thing and got a KO of Andre August in the very first round. I know Andre August wish it was September when he went against Jake Paul that night. Night. Whew. He got him, man. Shout outs to Jake Paul. Jake Paul wants to fight again. Jake Paul versus Ryan Bourne wants to keep making his way up the ranks in boxing. Faces Borland, 17-2. Okay, pretty decent record. But it doesn't matter. Jake Paul was too much for him, and Jake Paul did his thing in this fight, knocked him out in the first round. Didn't knock him out, TKO first round, but Jake just gave him the business throughout the fight. Bullying ain't want none. Nigga, he ain't want none. Jake Paul does his thing. And now we have Jake Paul versus Mike Perry. It's about to go down for real. The excitement is real, and 6 is all over, man. Jake Paul beat Mike Perry. Mike Perry just didn't have what it takes, man, to beat Jake Paul. Jake Paul got the job done.